Daggerfall, 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 Daggerfall. Daggerfall. This is going to be a video about Daggerfall. But it's going to be slightly different than the other ones. This is, as I'm sure you will be guessing, this is Privateer's Hold, the opening dungeon. And all the monsters are all dead. I've killed them all. Because we're going to take a look behind the scenes, as it were. Now the idea for this has originated, if we look in map mode, you can see our lovely little map. I think I've explored all of the dungeon. Well, in fact, I can just see there's a little bit here that I haven't explored, so I'm going to do that now. The ambient noises are a bit spooky. Okay, so now that is definitely everything then. So we have, here's the opening cave. We have the low-level rooms. We have the, where is it? Yeah, here's the table with the archer. All the usual things. And here's the room at the top, if you go past the exit. And then there's this little secret room with a skeleton in there. So this is the entirety of a Privateer's Hold. And you can see here on the left is this little weird mini map thing. So this, if we look down at the dungeon from above, it starts to make a little bit of sense. The green obviously indicates the dungeon entrance and exit. Here we go. It even says entrance exit position beacon. And here we have the player marker. And the rotation pivot axis is all helpfully named. So yeah, the green is the door and the red is us. Now, because of this red and green pixels, it suggests that this could be considered as 5 blocks of 2 by 2. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 in the middle. But really, each 2 by 2 square of yellow represents what is called a dungeon block. So almost all of Privateer's Hold represents the 2 by 2 yellow square in the middle of this cross. And this is the internal block of the dungeon. And there are neighbouring blocks as well, of which we can see this section here, this curving path in this room correspond to the block on the right. Moves very slowly. This one room down here, sticking off the edge, represents the block to the north, as it were. Similarly, on this side, we have a little room. It's a little room with a cupboard in the corner. Represents this part here, and the same for the bottom part. Now, what you may or may not know that you can do with Daggerfall Unity, hit the tilde button, and it brings up the console. If you type in help, you get a list of commands. Now, one of these, somewhere near the top. Here we go. Map underscore reveal all. Reveals entire map. So if we go for that one, map underscore reveal all, if we go back into the map, now we can see there's extra rooms and passages, and they're all disconnected. There's no way that you can normally get to these sections. So if we go back to looking from above, we can see that before we were only aware of in this case one room, in this case one room. Here to the south was corridor and a room. On this side it was a passageway with a little room. But the reason why they're showing up here as 2x2 blocks of yellow is because there's each block does indeed contain more than just the few little bits that we saw before. Fascinating. So and indeed in these isolated sections and rooms, monsters and treasure can appear. I don't know if treasure can appear, maybe not, but certainly monsters can spawn in here. Now, it used to be said, I think, it was a bit of an urban myth, that quest monsters and quest items might spawn in these isolated parts of the map, but I don't know if that's true, but I think it's not true. I think it was more likely that people knew that these things existed, but the truth was they just didn't. They couldn't find the quest target, so they thought it must be in one of these sections. But I don't think it's possible. But I could be wrong about that. Now, each of these blocks is designed, I think, because they're like modular components. So if we take a look, for example, which is a good example. Well, maybe. The thing is, of course, the Privateer's Hold is a main quest dungeon, so it was actually handcrafted. So perhaps in retrospect it wasn't the best dungeon to choose, but I chose it because everybody is presumably familiar with it. Anyway, let's try. Yeah, let's just start here and see how it goes. So. If we're looking at this block on the outside here. So if you consider it as a cube, there's one face connected to the middle, although of course in this case it isn't connected at all. And then it has its own, losing the ability to use the mouse. It has its 3 other faces. So this might be quite tricky to demonstrate, but essentially you should be able to see that there's a door here, and then there's another door here, which is a little bit higher up. If we come around to the other side, you can see there's a door that doesn't connect to anything, the same as down here. Now, that's on this side. On this side, we have a similar setup. There's a door here, the top of this slope, and then there's another door here. And if we can see that where the mouse cursor is, and then if we spin around to the far side of this block, again we can see a similar thing. There's a doorway here. And there's also, you can just see the little white outline, there's a doorway here. So each side of this block has two doors, 2 connections. One which is lower down and the other which is higher up. And they're on opposite sides. So here we have From this position, it's on the top left and the bottom right. Here is bottom left, top right. And here is bottom left and top right. So you can see how these cubes can be assembled in any way. They always have each side, each face of the cube, because of course the top and the bottom face don't count. It's only the four sides that count. Each side has two connecting doors, and they're positioned such that they can always connect to each other. Now the way that this block connects to the central block, to Privateer's Hold, is that this room here on the side, and this is the secret room with the skeleton, is it? No, that's in fact up here. Ah yes, this is this is the bookcase. But there's an empty room on the side. Now this is because this empty room is part of this block. So this room with the bookcase is in the central block, and it's connected here. This room is part of this block. And we can also see this represents the kind of upper level connection. Now if we go back to look from above, we can also see that this room down here is also in this block. The block doesn't start here, the block starts here. You can see that from above. This is the block. So again, on this side the block connects to the central block, upper right, lower left. It's just that there's no way to connect from this room to this room. They're both dead rooms, but you can see that if you just rotated this 90 degrees, this connection here and this connection here would also work. It's like some kind of giant Rubik's cube of horrible mazes. And it's the same here. You could have, in fact, an infinitely... what a nightmare it would be. You could have an infinitely large dungeon by just dropping more cubes in this pattern. And the same is true for the other sides. So, again, on this side we have... And this is something that is very common in dungeons, is you will find a door, you'll go through a door, and let's see if we can do this. You'll go through a door and you'll just find yourself in a very small corridor not connected to anything. And then you think, well, what is the complete point of that? Well, the point of that is simply that you've gone into the outside block now. And similarly to this one. And here we can see this block just has a path that goes all the way up and connects back in. This is exactly the same as this. And then on this side is also the same thing that we had before. There's a door there into an empty room. You probably recognize this. This is a very common room. 4x4 square with green walls and nothing in it. And the same thing here, a corridor and an empty room. Because this means you've travelled out of the central block and into a border block, I think they're called. Now, why is this interesting? I don't know. Well, I don't know if it is interesting. Maybe it's incredibly dull. But if you are still watching, then congratulations. But the important thing, I just rotate this so that it matches the little yellow map. Yeah. The important thing is that when you're looking for the quest item or the quest creature, it can only spawn in an interior block. And of course now we know why that is. It's because of these disconnected parts. There's no way for the player, for example, to get to this room. So there's no way that a quest target or a quest monster should be spawned there. Whereas everything in this central block the player can get to. So you can use this little yellow pictogram or whatever it is. You can see, I'm in the central block, or I'm in a border block. So if we just come back to the game, are we close to a border block? If we go, well, yeah, If we go back to the main chamber. Fascinating this, isn't it? If we come down to this little secret door in the corner. Well, quite. Yeah. Come to this room here. So now if we look from above, we're now in a different block. And if I just spin this around, this is the correct orientation. We can see here that the little red square, that is us. We are now in the bottom right corner of this outer block. What do you call it? The northern edge, the top edge. Whereas if we just come back through this little doorway, go back to the map, we are now inside the central 2x2 space because we've moved back into the internal block. So, looking at the map, we can see immediately, and in this case there's only this tiny little room, so we know. But if this block was such that there was more connections, you could get further in, which is possible because let's suppose that the block was connected on this face, and we can see that you would be able to go down this slope and round this. The path goes round and it takes you into this room, which I think has four burning pillars or something in it. A fairly standard room. But if we were here, we could see, we're on the outside. There's no way that the quest target can be here. So this is why this little yellow thing is actually very handy for navigating in dungeons. I was always curious what this was, and that is it. So, I have a feeling I explained that maybe not as best as possible, but hopefully somewhat. Now, there's another console command we can use, which will come in very handy when you get frustrated by huge dungeons. Something about teleporting. Here we go. Map teleport mode. Enables debug teleport mode. Control shift and left mouse click. So we need to go map underscore teleport mode. Teleport mode has been enabled. Go back to the map. Now we can see here, for example, that this section is completely isolated from the rest of Privateer's Hold. There's no way that the player can normally get to any of these rooms. If we go Control Shift and left click, we've now teleported ourselves to here. If we leave the map, we are now in this isolated section. So we can have a quick look and see what's here. Maybe there's a monster in here. See, there is. Hey, monster that's nearly killed me. And indeed, if we open the door, we can see there's nothing out here. Maybe there'll be another monster. That will. He was easier to kill. Now, this is a room you've probably seen hundreds of times, but you will never find a quest target in here. Of course, the thing to be aware of is that some of these blocks they're not exactly duplicates, but these elements within them are reused. So this concept of the large room with beams and those four pillars and the path that goes around the outside, there are actually 3 separate blocks which contain this architecture. So it is possible that bits of this architecture could be used to define an internal block. So just by being in this room alone, you don't know that for sure you're in an external block. But if you go to the map, then you can see, yes, we're in an external block, we're on the outside. So no point looking for quest targets here. I wonder if we can find somewhere that lets us look out into the rest of the map, such as Possibly here. Open this door, and we should be able to see here. You can see other bits of the geometry. You can see that there's a little bat flapping his wings down there, trapped forever in this small square room. And there's a bear in that room. So there's plenty of things. Another one. Wish we could fly. Do I have a levitate spell? I do not, so we can't go and look. Anyway. The thing to be aware of is that the main quest dungeons are hand assembled, so they don't necessarily follow exactly these rules. But that's okay, because you can look on the internet to find out how to solve them. But for all the other dungeons, the non-quest dungeons, you can use this to kind of focus your search. It may still be necessary to come into one of these external blocks to move around, but well, I think we should try and find a larger dungeon to see how this map changes, because maybe I believe the game will support at least 32 blocks, which would be horribly massive. I don't know what the largest dungeon is in the game, but let's go and find. Let's try and find a large one and see how its little map compares to this. Just to finish off. Okay, so it took a little bit of time, but finally managed to find one that was interesting. This dungeon is called, let's see, I found it on the map. Found it on a map in Privateer's Hold, interestingly enough. Evil Cultus. Evil Cultus. Now if we go into the map here, we can see that this is quite a lot bigger than Privateer's Hold. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 blocks. Most of which will be the border blocks, but I think we'll have 1, 2, 3. I think we'll have 4 internal blocks. So that means that the primary space of this dungeon is equivalent to 4 times Privateer's Hold. At the moment there's only this. Let's go into the old console and reveal all of the map. That is a big one, isn't it? And let's just orient it correctly. So we can see here, yeah, most of the border blocks are fairly small. They are just bits of passageways and random rooms. So we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Come on. And 8 border blocks and 1, 2, 3, 4 internal blocks. So this dungeon is a beast. Now, another good thing about this dungeon, which I otherwise would have forgot, is that it has a switch or a lever or any kind of thing that you can interact with to change, to open doors and things like that. That lever can only affect something in this block, which makes sense because each block is a self-contained module. It's just plug and play. It's built up like Lego. But the code for this switch, whatever it does, can only be in this block. So if you find a door that you cannot open or a trap door that you cannot activate, and there are switches, again, you need to check on this map, which block am I in? Maybe I found a lever, but it doesn't appear to do anything. Well, if the lever's not in the same block as the trapdoor, for example, then That is not the lever. You need to find another way in. This is a this is a nasty one. Yeah, we have here the double pillar setup. If I can get closer. Now, what are these? Are these floating tables? Possibly this section is flooded. Well, we can find out by teleporting there. Control Shift left click. Well, unfortunately, everybody's live. So yeah, so this block is flooded. Oh dear, they're shooting at me. And these weird things are the tables floating in the water. So some of the blocks have flooded equivalents. Oh no, I've attacked the one that I pacified. Superb. Well, yes, you go down there, you naughty girl. Yeah, so this is another good example. We can see at the moment we are well, let's see, let's orient it correctly. Where is the green? I think that's it, isn't it? So we can see now that when we go through this doorway, we will go into this external block. And this external block, yeah, is simply one room. That's why there are so many empty rooms in Daggerfall dungeons. And you have the same thing here. If there was another joining block on this side, you would simply come in here, and there would be nowhere else to go but these two rooms. Anyway, hopefully that has proven some use, and yeah, using this teleporter debug thing is really handy. How do I do it? Maybe if I press the correct buttons it will work. And this is actually awesome. Now you can forget fast travel, this is real fast travel. Let's yeah, let's go to here. Oh dear. And we escape. I wonder what that does. Maybe it moves this. I think it did. Anyway, so that's that. Hopefully that was of some use, and if nothing else, then at least the console commands will be handy. It will be difficult to resist when Magico runs low and you can't recall back to the entrance. Well, now you can. Anyway, thanks very much. I'll see you for some actual gameplay at some point in the future. Take care. Adios.